In 1554, a young woman walked into the studio of the most famous artist in the world. Her name was Sofonisba. She was 22 years old, a woman, which meant she had no right to be there, and she showed him a drawing. Michelangelo looked at it, and he did something that would change her life forever. He challenged her. Let me take you back to 1532. Cremona, Italy. A small city, a noble family, a father named Amilcare Anguissola. Amilcare had 6 children. 4 of them were daughters. And in Renaissance Italy, daughters were expensive problems. They were supposed to be beautiful, quiet, tradable, married off to secure alliances. Their entire purpose was to exist as objects, to be painted, to be admired, to be owned by the next man in their lives. But Amilcare was different, dangerous, even. He read a book called The Book of the Courtier, and it planted a radical idea in his head. What if my daughters were educated? What if they developed talents? Not to be more marketable brides, but to actually create something. His eldest daughter was named Sofonisba, and Amilcare decided to gamble everything on her. At age 14, Sofonisba was sent to study with Bernardino Campi, one of Italy's most respected portrait painters. Think about what this meant. This wasn't a hobby. This wasn't painting lessons to make her cultured. This was an apprenticeship, a real one. The same training given to boys who would become master artists. The noble families were scandalized. How dare he? But Amilcare didn't care, because something was happening to his daughter that he didn't expect. She was becoming extraordinary. By her early 20s, Sofonisba's reputation had spread across Italy. People were whispering about her, artists, collectors, nobles. There's a woman painter, they said, and she's good. But whispers don't mean much. Whispers fade. So in 1554, someone decided to set up a meeting that would either destroy her or immortalize her. They arranged for Sofonisba to meet Michelangelo. Not just any Michelangelo, the Michelangelo, the man who painted the Sistine Chapel, the most revered artist in Europe, possibly in history. She walked into his presence with drawings. He looked at them coldly. Then he did something unprecedented. He issued a challenge. These are good, he said, but show me something harder. Show me something with true emotion. Show me a child weeping. This was a test to see if she was real. So Sofonisba went back to her studio, and she created something no one had ever seen before. A painting called Child Bitten by a Lobster. In it, a young boy recoils in shock, pain, and embarrassment. His face is alive with emotion. His mother reaches out. Playmates laugh in the background. It's chaos, it's real, it's human. Michelangelo saw it, and he wept. Not metaphorically, historically documented, he wept. He said, "This is not the work of a woman, this is the work of a genius." He began teaching her informally. For 2 years, the man who painted God on the Sistine Chapel was teaching a 22-year-old woman from Cremona how to see the world like an artist. Within weeks, her reputation transformed from interesting talent to the most talented painter in Italy. Collectors from across Europe wanted her work. Kings wanted her work. Popes wanted her work. She was 22 years old, and she had already changed everything. Here's where the story gets really clever. Because Sofonisba faced a massive problem. Women weren't allowed to paint the subjects that made male artists famous. Male artists painted biblical scenes, historical moments, nude figures, grand narratives, scenes that demonstrated their knowledge, their vision, their power. Women couldn't paint any of that. It was forbidden. Why? Because studying nude figures was improper for women. So what does Sofonisba do? She paints something radical, herself, and not just once. She painted 12 self-portraits, at a time when this was almost unheard of. Before Rembrandt became famous for it, before anyone else was even doing it regularly. But here's the genius part. Each one was a statement. In one, she paints herself holding a book with an inscription in Latin. Sofonisba Anguissola, a virgin, made this herself, 1554. Translation: I am chaste, I am virtuous, and I made this with my own hands. I am not a model, I am an artist. In another, she paints herself at the easel, actively creating. Not being created, not being gazed at, creating, but the most brilliant move, the double portrait where she paints her teacher Bernardino Campi, painting her. Stop for a second and think about this. In Renaissance art, the artist was the active power, the model was passive, the object, but Sofonisba is the one who painted this scene. She painted her teacher painting her, which means she is the active power, she is in control. She determines how the world sees this relationship. She literally flipped the power dynamic on canvas, in the Renaissance, in front of everyone. It's like she was saying, you see, I'm not the passive object in someone else's story, I'm the storyteller. One of the most influential art historians in the world, Giorgio Vasari, saw her work and wrote, "She has shown a more resolute courage and a greater grace than any woman of our time in problems of design." Translation: she's better than everyone, including the men. The self-portraits spread across Europe. Collectors were desperate to own them. Kings requested them. Cardinals wanted them in their private chambers. These weren't just paintings, they were power moves, they were evidence, proof that a woman could create, could think, could see, could command. By 1559, Sofonisba's fame had reached Spain, and not just anywhere in Spain. The royal court, the most powerful court in Europe at that moment. The Spanish queen, Elizabeth of Valois, was learning to paint. She wanted a tutor. She wanted Sofonisba. So Sofonisba packed her belongings and traveled to Madrid. And here's what happened. She became a court painter, an official member of the royal household, under direct patronage of King Philip II. Let me make this crystal clear for you. A woman, in 1559, at the most powerful court in Europe, working directly for one of history's most powerful monarchs, as his official artist. She couldn't be paid in salary, because that would be improper for a woman. So instead, the king himself gave her gifts, clothing, jewels, precious items. She was there for 10 years, creating, influencing, teaching the queen, teaching the nobility. And then something remarkable happened. She got older, she got less useful to the court, so she was sent away. But by then, her legend was already written. It was impossible to erase. Later in life, when the famous Baroque painter Anthony van Dyck visited Sicily, he sought her out, not as a student, as an equal, as someone he wanted to memorialize in paint. He painted her portrait, the painter being painted by another master, a rare honor. She lived to 93. She worked for 70 years. She created hundreds of paintings, and she changed the entire trajectory of art history. When Sofonisba died in 1625, a woman named Lavinia Fontana wrote a letter saying, "We set our hearts on learning how to paint after seeing one of Sofonisba's portraits." Lavinia became one of the most successful painters of the Baroque era, and it was because Sofonisba showed her it was possible. She created a path. She proved it could be done. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't wait for the world to change. She picked up a brush and made herself unforgettable. This painting is her legacy. She's not being gazed at. She's looking directly at you, daring you to see her as anything less than a master. She's the artist, you're the viewer, and she's in control. And that changed everything.